Welcome to What You Talking About. Today's guest is Arielle Loewen, a two-time CrossFit Games athlete who will be going back for a third time later this year after just securing third place at semifinals earlier this month. Known as the Fittest Mom in America, Arielle chats to us about her almost 10-year CrossFit career, winning semifinals and a Games event, and training all on her own. I loved this chat and hope you do too. We really hope you enjoy. Please don't forget to like, rate and subscribe to be the first to hear all about our new content and episodes. Arielle Loewen, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk with you. First of all, where are you from?
I am from the south of England, so down south, sunny by the beach, very nice, very hot at the moment, which is unheard of. So it's really nice to chat to people, halfway across the world.
Yeah, I love it. It's actually super hot today here as well. We go in Fahrenheit, but it's almost 100 degrees. I don't know what that is. What's it for you guys today?
It's about 28 degrees, not Fahrenheit, Celsius.
Okay, Celsius. Gotcha.
I was like, I don't know the conversion. This is the issue we have watching CrossFit, trying to convert pounds to kilos. That's the issue. That's probably my most searched Google term, like pounds to kilos. What is it?
I love it. Well, it's funny because the Dubai Games always do kilos, and I've got to do the same thing, convert it over. So you just get one event where it understands your lingo.
Yeah, it's great though, and you get used to it. You kind of think, oh, actually, I know roughly what this is now. So you can, like, watching semifinals, you get to a point you're like, oh, I know what that is. I got it. So
you're learning.
Yeah. But yeah, talking of semifinals, you're fresh out. Third place, going back to the games. How are you feeling?
I'm actually feeling good. Semifinals went well. I have no complaints because I qualified. I took a week off, kind of ate whatever I wanted, was lazy, did basically anything I wanted. And then this is the first week back into it. So it felt like Monday was just like sweat all the sugar out of me. Tuesday, I started to feel a little bit more normal. And then today, Friday, was just a normal training day. And I felt like my old pre-semifinal self, as goofy as that is. But Monday officially starts the hard games training. And then I'll do basically 6 to 7 weeks super hard. So this was my last week of chill, just have fun, just move, just sweat. And then we're going to go hard Monday.
Yeah, I love the nervousness in your voice. You're like, yeah, I'm excited, but actually
I know I am really excited because I love the journey. Like, the CrossFit Games is fun, but the training at home with my training partner is so much fun, but it hurts so bad. So it's like I would way rather be training for the games though than not make it to the games and be in a slump of, okay, I have to wait till February when the Open starts. So there's goods and bads to all of it.
It is, and it's so exciting, and I think it was really nice. What I love this year, obviously, at semi-finals over the last few years, we've had similar events with across all of the regions, but this year, obviously, it was the exact same for everyone.
Yes.
And obviously, you were kind of towards the back end of the weekends. How did you find watching everyone do the exact same thing and then having to go in? Do you find it like more pressure?
I found it good. So I went second week. There were 3 different weeks. It was awesome for me because I got to watch the first week and get a rough amount of, okay, what are the times taking them? What are the numbers? How does that play into me? I got to watch people make mistakes. I got to watch people do really well and kind of learn from them. And then Europe, I feel like, was the last week. I didn't really watch it all because I felt like I was over it. I've already done these workouts. I know the pain. I've qualified. It doesn't matter. But week 1, I was glued to my phone watching all the girls' heats, all the guys' heats. And then I competed, and Europe was cool to watch bits and pieces, but I didn't watch it as much as first week. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it all, as to say, glued to it. But what I really liked, because I think obviously normally you're just competing against, your however many competitors in that event. But do you kind of feel like you're actually competing against everyone in the world because you're doing the same events and they're giving like worldwide scores and records? Do you feel like you're actually competing against a lot more people than you are?
Yeah, in some of the workouts, 1,000%. Like the event 2 with the burpee jump overs and the Linda, but the first event was the only one I didn't really compare myself at all because it's all relative to, is the floor sticky or will it glide a little bit more? Like Europe's times blew me away with how good they did at event one. And I'm just praying that, like, please tell me their floors were slipperier than ours, because our times were not that good.
It was funny to watch, and I know there's a lot of talk about that, isn't there? Because it is all about, what equipment you have and what circumstances. But does it make it harder then to compare yourself, I suppose, because you're like, oh, actually, no, it was the same, but it wasn't.
On that event, yeah, it makes it a lot harder to compare myself. And I try not to feel sorry for myself. Like, I have to lie to myself and say, okay, the sled moved a little bit nicer. That's why they finished 6 minutes faster than I did. But it's hard not to compare yourself, especially in the ones that were exactly the same.
Yeah.
But it's fun because it's fun to see, like, okay, this is where I did good. Awesome. I'm right where I need to be. Okay, this is where I need to work on a little bit. Okay, don't be discouraged. I have 6 weeks of hard training before the games. Let's fix that hole. So I found quite a few holes that give me motivation to work on leading up to the games.
Mm-hmm. It's all a learning curve, I suppose, isn't it? What I love is that I think in the last few years, obviously as a fan of CrossFit and listening and watching you, in the last few years, you've been such a prominent name. Everyone talks about you a lot. Was it you were doing regionals back in 2014, which I think is mad. Like, I think people forget that you've been in the game for so long. What's it like kind of looking back at 2014? Was that your first year of CrossFit as well? Was it your first open?
My first open was 2013. I started in 2012, kind of learned all the movement. 2013, they convinced me to do the open. First open workout I did, I took pre-workout 30 minutes before. Worst idea ever. End up throwing it up all over the place. But 2014 was the first year I could do all the movements. I could do double unders. I could do ring muscle ups. And then that's the year I qualified for regionals. And I tried for regionals 2014 to 2018. And just, I would get 12th or I'd get 10th. Always not close enough to qualify. But yeah, like you said, I've been in it a long time. Like, I did regional Linda back in 2018 when it was with the barbell and not with dumbbells. Did you watch the regionals back then?
Yeah, I was a bit late to the game, but I then got to the point where I became so obsessed, so just rewatched everything, which is obviously the beauty of CrossFit because they post everything. So yeah, I did. I kind of was late, probably 2018 start. Well, yeah, 2018 probably was the year I started watching, actually. But that was the year. So you were pregnant, right? And you didn't know when you were competing at regionals that year?
Yeah, I was about 6 to 8 weeks pregnant. So, and it's so wild to think about when I think back and reflect. My body felt weird all of 2018 regionals when I competed, but it wasn't until competition ended Sunday. Monday flying home was exactly when all the pregnancy sickness hit me. So it was like God gave me one more day of normalcy. Okay, you're done competing now. Here's the morning sickness. Here's the extreme fatigue. Here's the feeling different. So it like waited exactly until the Monday regionals was over.
Mm. Did you still kind of, once you had your daughter and you were like back in it, did you still have that same goal? Was it always like, I'm gonna still get back to regionals or semifinals or whatever it is? Was it still, did anything change in the process? Obviously a lot changed, but in terms of your long-term goals, I suppose, to get to the games?
I had quote unquote retired once I found out I was pregnant. I had the awesome maiden name of, my name was Arielle Armstrong. So to me, I was like, that's the perfect CrossFit jersey. Okay, I'm retiring. I'm going to retire my last name, be a full-time mom, be a good wife, like everything that comes with getting married, having a family, just like lean into. And so I just focused on health. So what was health for me like at that season was trying to show up to the gym 3 to 5 times a week, trying to eat healthy and just focus on like losing some weight, toning back down. So I looked quote unquote healthy. And then it was just amazing how focusing on health led me to looking great, feeling great. Okay, let's try the open. Okay, the open felt good. Let's try quarterfinals. And so it was so much more fun because it was not expected at all versus before I tried really hard to make it back in the regionals days.
Is it true that when you went to the Granite Games, it must have been 2021, you were just kind of in it to get a brand new name plaque for your new house?
Yeah, which I had trained. So don't let me fool you. I had still worked out hard because I didn't want to show up and look foolish.
Mhm.
But never in a million years would I have believed if you told me, hey, you're going to win it and you're going to qualify for the games. Like, even my husband, if he would have told me, like, hey, you've done enough regionals, you've competed enough, focus on being a wife, I would have listened to him and declined the invitation and done that. And even before we left for the event, someone asked me, like, what does life look like after semifinals when you compete at the Granite Games? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I go back to training. And Dylan's like, what do you mean after? My husband's name is Dylan. He's like, after that, we just come home and go on with life. Like, we both were in this season of no expectation to qualify or go further. But it was so special, just the way it happened and the unexpectedness of it. I remember winning Granite Games. They take you back for a drug test. There's a few interviews. You get fitted for your cool noble clothes. And then me and my husband just walking back to our hotel room after all the chaos. And we both just, like, it makes me emotional. We both just laid on the bed and cried because we were just like, what just happened? We're so happy. This is like such a blessing. And we're both in awe and let all the feels and emotions just take over.
It was so incredible to watch. And I think particularly that event, because you had also, like, in particular, Mal and Emma Carey, kind of, everyone was talking about them so much and how they had been amazing as teens. Obviously they are still teenagers, but like they're going into their first individual, and there was so much buzz about that event in general. And then you kind of just swoop on in like, yeah, cool. Like, look so casual. I'm going to beat these girls.
And it's so funny. But I had even came in the same thing. I had made my own fake leaderboard and said, okay, there's only 5 spots. There's going to be Mal, there's going to be Emma, Alessandra Pacelli, Christy O'Connell. Like, those are the 5 spots. Let's try and get top 10. Mm-hmm. So I was even the same way. People were just hyping up Emma and Mal. And of course I was doing the same thing, but it wasn't until Sunday, like, people started to talk to me like, oh wait, you should interview that girl, she's right in the mix with them, that they were like, crap, we don't even know who this is. So that was kind of fun. But I'd way rather prove people that, like, I'm working hard doing the right things by actions than to have all this hype around me and there's no actions behind it.
I think that's amazing. Was there a moment, I suppose, on the Sunday, like, when you were like, oh, actually, I could not only qualify for the games, which I'm sure would have been amazing, but actually I could win this? Do you remember, like, what moment that was where you were like, oh, this might be a bit more than I expected?
I think I was going into the last event, I was tied for first with Emma Carey. And this sounds awful, I really didn't care if I won or not. So I went into it and I remember just thinking the last event was rope climbs and dumbbell devil's press. And I remember just thinking, like, hey, 3 more devil's press and you're going to the games, 2 more. Because at that point I had already gotten a qualifying spot and that's all I cared about. So to win first was just like, I didn't even want this, but I'll take it. This is awesome.
And I suppose actually timing wise of getting to the games, you did it in a great year, because obviously 2020 they didn't really have a games, it was only 5 people. And I suppose going in, there was still a lot of restrictions, there was still a lot of, like, COVID testings and things. How was that like? What was it like as an overall experience for your first games?
The first experience of the games was kind of scary, as bad as it sounds. It started with the 1-mile swim in open water. And I had never really swam in open water before, but it legit scared me because there's 40 guys, 40 girls, 3, 2, 1, go. Everybody's kicking each other and swimming. You can't see if you look down because the water's so gross. You can't breathe because you're in water. So I remember just being terrified. But it got better as it went on. But the first year was a lot of, like, oh, wow, we have 30 minutes rest. Now we're doing another event. Oh my gosh, it's just a lot of firsts and realizing how intense the games really are. And mentally, I don't think I was ready for it. Physically, I think I did fine. But mentally, it was a lot. And it was Dave Castro. Dave Castro, very dramatic, very much like, let's do 5 rounds instead of 4. So he made it a little bit more dramatic too. Whereas Boz just felt very relaxed, very chill this year. What did you think, Castro versus Boz from a spectator?
I think I missed the drama a little bit as a spectator. But I also like the way I like the programming now. I like that there's a lot of new things going involved, but I think they're very different. But yeah, I think as you know, as watching the games, particularly from afar, when there's a lot kind of going on in documentaries and things, I really like the Castro effect was really great. So I suppose it's really cool that you got to experience that though, right? Even though it was potentially harder because he just throws you
right
different things all the time.
Right. Yeah, very dramatic. That's a great way to put it. Whereas Boz was just very chill. He's like, we're not trying to kill you. We're just trying to showcase your fitness.
Showcase. That's a good way of putting it as well, I suppose.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, just, you know, you're going to really hurt, but we're just showcasing it.
Yeah. Go have fun. As we take off for the Capitol.
At that event, I want to talk about that actually, but I suppose 2021, did you feel how much pressure did you feel because you'd won a semi-final? Did you think there was more pressure because you had been kind of at the top of that region?
No, which is great. I think a lot of people, they still do. They don't really give me much credit, just to say like, oh, she's a mom. She's not a part of a training camp. So I've never really been like placed high on rankings or placed high on people's predictions. Not that I watched them or listened to it. Final day, 20 girls made it to Sunday and top 20 got paid. So my goal going into the games was, hey, let's make it to Sunday and let's go home with a paycheck. So not much pressure, but top 20.
Yeah, which is great. And I think people probably forget as well the payment side of the games, because I know you spoke about this quite recently in an interview as well, but people forget that you don't get paid unless you obviously get to this certain spot. So that's actually a really interesting way of looking at it, that you weren't looking to win, you were like, oh, I'm gonna get paid.
Yeah, and it's the first time I've ever gotten paid for CrossFit, and I've been doing it since 2012. So it was just cool to be like, I don't care if I go home with $2,000 or $10,000. It's more money than I've ever gotten from CrossFit before.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was fun.
So going in after kind of 2021, you've had your first games experience. Is it straight away, right, let's go 2022, start the season again, we're going back to the games? Is it that's the goal straight away?
Yeah, once I had a little taste of it and realized like, okay, this is what I need to work on, I can compete with this girls, it was like, if I feel healthy, let's go back. But I've been very blessed. After the games, I got invited to Rogue Invitational and then Wadapalooza. So I've had these fun off-season competitions as well to keep me still competing with the best and seeing like, okay, what's my weakness? Okay, let's work on that and hopefully get back to the games.
Mm-hmm. And a little bit of a different experience with semifinals, not making it, last chance qualifiers and everything. How was that kind of going into it again? Like, I suppose going into semifinals, did you have a goal again? Was the goal just to get to the games at that point, or did you think, all right, okay, I podiumed last year, I could do it again this year? What were your thoughts going into that last year?
Last year, I think I came in a lot too confident. So people had predicted me to be third, maybe second. And I didn't sell out on, I feel like, any of the events other than the one I got second place in. So there was a lot of like pride I had to put aside after I didn't qualify. It was really painful because I was like, okay, you thought you trained hard, but now looking back, you were comfortable. You were like, of course I'll make it to the games. I did good at Wadapalooza. I made it to the games last year. But it was super eye-opening and such a great experience, because from that, I changed a lot of my programming because it showed a lot of holes. It made me more motivated to train hard for the last chance qualifier. And then I showed up to the games way more thankful because I'd gotten in with a backdoor slot. And then now it was like being at the games all over again. And I'm coming in last year, 2022, coming in from the last chance qualifier, I basically come in last place amongst all the girls. So it was fun to be like, okay, I'm coming in ranked last. Let's move up to 20th. Oh, okay, let's move up to top 10 and just kind of like work my way up as we went.
How hard is it doing the last chance qualifier as well, obviously as a last chance, because it goes from being in this really competitive atmosphere where you've got loads of adrenaline and fans and everything to get you through, to doing it on your own via video? Like, what was that like in terms of being like, okay, this is it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It was, okay, here's 4 workouts. Do your best, submit them. And at 2:00, the leaderboard will show if you did good or bad. So it was scary initially, but I was overwhelmed by the support. I live in Midland, Texas, of the Midland community. I posted on my social media. People knew I didn't qualify for the games. I was like, hey, I'm doing the last chance qualifier. I'll do this workout at 3 p.m. and I'm going to come back and do this one at 7 p.m. If you want to come watch, cheer me on, doors are open. Just please, like, don't talk to me while I'm warming up. You can talk to me after. And I was blown away. I would have 50 to 100 people there who just showed up just to say like, hey, you got this, we support you, and would just cheer me on the whole time. So it felt like the most special crowd I could have ever asked for, because it's people who, they saw me not qualify. They knew I was sad. They knew I was discouraged. And they're like, hey, I'm going to show up to support you, to cheer for you, to be there for you. And it was the most heartwarming thing. I'm so glad I didn't qualify through syndicate, because I got like such a happy heart, warm heart feeling from just seeing everybody who showed up just to be there for me.
And that's CrossFit at its finest,
Yeah,
right? It's moments
exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
So 2022 games, obviously you go and you say you're building up the leaderboards, you come in pretty hot with a event win. Talk me through that moment, because I suppose, again, you're one of these names that people talk about you, but it's maybe not, she's going to win all the events, or she's going to win. So you kind of come in as a bit of an underdog and then win this event. What was that like? It was such a fun event to watch as well.
It was so fun. Coming into it, I remember lining up before they say like stand by and beep, and I look and I see Laura Horvath on my left, and then I look over and see Tia Toomey on my right, and I just remember being like, I hope someone takes a picture, because if nothing else, it's so cool to watch these athletes on the TV for years, and now I'm standing right in the middle of them. So there's a complete awe. And then I'm like, every workout I approach is like, just go by feel. So I went by feel, it felt good. So I kept pushing. And then like, next thing I know, I'm head to head with Tia. And I'm like, me and Tia are going head to head. Okay, this is crazy. Oh my gosh, I'm in the lead. Okay, beat Cara Saunders time. And then just finishing, and just surreal the whole time. I was just waiting for like my arms to blow up, waiting for my legs to blow up, waiting for my lungs to just say like, bend over and breathe. But I just felt good the whole time. And I remember being like, Dylan's going to be so proud of me, because he's watching from the stands and my family was there. And I'm just like, they're going to be so happy for me. And it was just unreal. It was so fun.
It was such a great event to watch. And I think it was one of them events where obviously you have the commentary, but it was quite hard to figure out where people were at until the very final kind of rounds. Did it feel, when you're actually in that moment, obviously say you're between two of the best in the world, are you thinking about where they're at, or are you just thinking about yourself?
I have no idea where Laura was at, but I was definitely focused on where Tia was, because if I knew if I stayed close to Tia, I'm going to do pretty well on that event. But it was just so fun. Yeah. And I didn't even know I was good at the parallel bars until we were 21:59 reps in, and I still felt great while people were dying off. So it was fun for me to discover that, and the commentators to see it, and the crowd to see it, like all at once. We discovered like, oh, okay, she's pretty good at these.
There was a lot of newness in last year's game.
Yeah.
We spoke about the difference with bars. How, as like an athlete, obviously you train for what you know, and you train for what you think you're going to know. When you go in and there's a complete, you like have no idea what's about to happen, how do you prepare for that on the day or the day before, when you find out kind of what these workouts are?
Unfortunately, at that point, there's not much preparing, which is kind of why I loved Boz's programming, because it was either you have the skill or you don't, and there's no hiding, or you can shine if you have it. And it's fun to be backstage and you kind of see the chaos of, okay, we have 20 minutes to try this thing, and then we're competing. And I personally thrive on that, because I love just like flying by the seat of my pants and trusting my gymnastics ability or the strength training I've been doing to get me through. And I like it because you can train as hard as you want, but at the games, you either trained good or you didn't. And there's no hiding, there's no practicing the workouts over and over and over again to perfect them. It's like, are you fit or are you not? Yes or no?
Yeah, and it does show, I suppose, when people do have gaps, and even as kind of spectators, you can see that even if you don't really know the sport.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned earlier, I was going to ask you what your most favorite and least favorite workouts were of last year, but I just want to ask your opinion on the Capitol, because I think, firstly, watching that, obviously there was a huge CrossFit moment about the CrossFit community, and it was such an incredible event to watch. It also looked horrific. So what was that one like, first and foremost?
First of all, did you enjoy watching it as a spectator from home? Could you feel the
and I think particularly at the end, watching it with Rebecca Fuselier and everyone coming through, it was so emotional to watch, and I can only imagine what it would have been like to actually be there. But just the pain on everyone's faces, dropping that sandbag at the end, it makes it, that's where I love CrossFit, because you're like, oh, I enjoyed working out, but I don't push myself that hard.
No.
It's amazing to watch, particularly with a long event, because I think sometimes you can lose interest a little bit, or you kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna forward this a little bit. But it kept you engaged the whole time, that event, I think.
That's good. That event, I thoroughly, as bad as it was, loved it because of the moments at the end. Like the run in the middle got really dark, but the final stretch of carrying the sandbag on your back, on your shoulder, and then having to carry it up the steps just was unreal. The crowds that were there, like the whole street was lined up. I'll get it in a second. The whole street was lined up, just screaming, cheering. And they'd magically know my name, know the person's name next to me, which blew me away, because I mean, there's a lot of us out there, but to say let's go Cara, let's go Cara, let's go Arielle, they knew exactly who to cheer for. And it was just a beautiful moment, but it hurt so bad. We went back and watched that event just to see it. And I didn't realize people would lay on the finish line and volunteers would literally be like, get out of the way, and they'd pick them up and just drag them to the grass. That's how bad it was.
There's a really, I think it was Mayhem's YouTube videos last year, and they Guy and they were literally dragging them along to the walls with the fans to just
exactly,
because they just looked, and it's a really hard point, I suppose, at that time, where you are you're dying, I can't move, and someone's trying to push you out the way.
Right. You're just let me lay here.
Just give me a second.
Exactly. That's what makes it beautiful to me. Is just the carnage that happened at the end makes all of that so much more fun to watch.
It was great. And as you say, it was such a community event, and that's what I love about them. They have kind of the outdoor workouts and everything. Obviously, I'm assuming Elizabeth was a highlight, but of the events of last year's games, are there any that stand out as a real kind of highlight, or any of your favorite workouts?
I definitely, of course, loved Elevated Elizabeth, but I thoroughly enjoyed all the weird stuff he threw at us, like the skill medley with the strict pegboard. I loved the handstand push-ups, and I really enjoyed the swimming workout. It was hard to watch. We tried to go back and watch it, but it was hard to watch on the screen. Don't touch that, please. But it was just fun how it was, okay, if you get in this interval, you get to keep progressing with the ski erg. And if you get in this one, you get to keep swimming. So that was just a fun take on swimming, because usually it's just jump in the lake and try not to drown.
I think it was nice because especially the last few years, it has been long swimming events where you can't really tell who's where in the water. Everyone's out. So yeah, it did make it different and fun. Are there, going as a training CrossFit, obviously now you've had a lot of experience with CrossFit in general. When you first started, what were your biggest weaknesses, or the things that you really had never done throughout your life?
Definitely double unders were really hard. Ring muscle ups, because as a gymnast, we only do the bars. So anything on the rings was pretty tricky. Weightlifting was really hard, the technique of a clean, the technique of a snatch. All the new movements, I say all the new movements, some people come in already knowing them, but the techniques of everything took me a long time to get. Like double unders took me almost a year, ring muscle ups almost a year. So I'm blown away when people come in like to work out and they're like, yeah, I want to learn a ring muscle up. And I'm like, okay, you see me do it, but realistically, it took a long time to get it just because there's so much technique. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very unskilled, so everything at the moment.
Oh no.
I mean, if I ever get a ring muscle up, then it'll be about 10 years time.
There you go.
I always say I'm training for my master's career.
Good. How old are you?
I'm 26. So I've got like 9 years, you know, I'm there.
Oh, plenty of time. Too much time, actually.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
What about things like swimming, for example, and running and all these things that come into the games every year? Did you do that a lot before you started CrossFit?
Running, not so much. I did do track, but I did more sprints, not the like long distance 3-mile run to the Capitol. But I was a lifeguard growing up in high school. So that does help and transfer over. But as much as I love to swim, I don't like open water. So if you throw me in a pool, love it. Open water is just not my favorite.
Yeah, them lakes in Madison do look pretty savage.
They're gross. And like you just have seaweed stuck to your goggles and it doesn't taste good either. Not my favorite.
No, and you always start the weekend with them normally as well, right? So it's like, oh, that's a great way to introduce myself to Madison.
Yeah, and the first touching on that, sorry to cut you off.
Go for it.
The first year at the games, a memory I have that just like still grosses me out. We had the mile swim, 3-mile kayak, outdoor event, 2 outdoor events, and then we ended in the Coliseum. They didn't let us shower, hose off, or we went straight from the lake. Okay, change clothes. Now you're at North Park doing the ring muscle up pig flip. Now you're doing the sprint. Now you're back in the Coliseum. So I remember just feeling disgusting all day and then showering and then, hey, come back and do it again tomorrow.
It's things like that you don't think about, particularly watching, because you all just kind of, you watch event from event and you don't think about the transitions that you all have. What's it like, obviously, the prep in between? And not knowing, right? So you don't really know the layout of the weekend until the day before. How do you prepare for that? Or do you?
Man, honestly, I don't know how to prepare for it. But last year it was nice. They let us like leave the venue a little bit. The first year I just remember feeling like we were locked in the Coliseum basement all weekend. And it was just, okay, make sure you have food, make sure you have water, and try and just get away from people and detach and go to your happy place before you have to do it all over again. I don't know a good tactic. Just eat food and drink water.
That's all you can do.
Right.
One thing I love about you and your training is you are very solo. I know you have training partners and things, but you train in your garage, right? So you work out a lot on your own, programming, etc. What's that like well, actually, just in general, what's that like? Why do you choose to do it that way?
Yeah, I love it. I wouldn't even say I chose to do it. It just kind of happened and I rolled with it and I loved it. So my first year going to the games, I was at a CrossFit affiliate. And then always when you're, unfortunately, with people, there's drama. So there was drama. Made it to the games, didn't give this person enough credit, didn't give this person enough credit. And I was just like, guys, I'm just here to work out. I had this amazing games trick. Like, please just let me do this. So I had to leave that one, went to a different affiliate. Nothing happened wrong with that affiliate. It's just, there's people, okay, I'm taking up too much space here. Too many people are talking to me. I can't get my stuff done. So eventually I want to go back to the community because I do love people in the community, but it got to where after the games last year, I just wanted to work a little bit harder and I couldn't with people talking to me. So I was like, I'm just going to work out from home. I'll try it out for a month. And I loved it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try it out for 2 months. Okay, maybe January 1st, I'll go back to the gym. And I just have never had the desire to go back. And it's been so peaceful, lonely at times, but I don't have to deal with any outside voices, any outside drama, pressure. I come in, I can work out as long or as little. Music can be loud, gym can be messy, and it doesn't matter at all. it's made the season so peaceful, which I hate saying because I do have good people in my life, but just like any outside stress has been completely removed, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I quite enjoy it working out alone sometimes. I think you can just go into yourself, and as much as a class and everything is great, yeah, it's sometimes really good. Does it make it harder going from them being in your own environment to going out onto a competition floor with a lot more people and distractions and everything? Does that, not being in an affiliate, make it harder, the transition, I suppose?
Yeah, this semifinals was my first time to test it. So good question. And I had the kind of same thoughts, like, what will this feel like? But I found I had a lot of adrenaline. So I go to my dark place in the gym, and the only voice I have is the one in my head saying, okay, go faster. Okay, can you handle a little bit more? Don't die. So it was really refreshing to be on the floor and hear people screaming at me. And the voice in my head is saying, okay, go a little faster. And when that voice gets negative, I've got all these people in the crowd just screaming and yelling. So it was fun to test that theory. And I felt good throughout all the semifinal workouts. So it was also reassuring to know, like, okay, what you're doing is still working. It's okay.
Yeah.
It is very different. Yeah, I still got it.
It is. What do you hear when you're on the competition floor? Like, are you listening for like your husband, or are you listening to like the MC? What do you listen out for when you're actually in it?
On the floor, you and I think so much alike, because I had this question you just asked about what will it be like in front of the crowd when you're used to training alone. And then I actually thought of that exact thing on event 6, which was the rower and rope climb.
Yeah.
Because I'll hear my husband yell, I'll hear the announcers talk, but I don't ever remember hearing music or like what are we hearing? So I specifically on event 6 listened for music. And on the rower, I remember hearing it, and it's like an alarm or like a noise that you hear, and it just gives you anxiety. Semifinals has like one track on repeat, and there's no words in it. So it's just the same noise over and over and over again on a replay. And once I had focus to listen to it, I was like, I know this sound. Like, this sound gives me nightmares because this is all I hear when I'm in the dark place. So I couldn't tell you what it is.
Yeah.
But I remember specifically listening for the music, and I did not like the music.
It's funny because when you watch at the in semifinals, like the earlier heats, you obviously hear a lot more because they don't have the commentary. But then the later heats, we can't hear. Like, watching it online, you can't hear what you guys are hearing. So it's really interesting to kind of figure out what you're listening out for, what you can and can't hear, because it's so loud as well, right? So
isn't it?
Yeah. So when like your husband is cheering for your name, can you hear him? Like, or do you listen?
I can. I listen for it, and I can usually hear him. And then I have an agent named Jared, and he'll be at the semifinals, and I can usually hear those two voices are the ones I always hear, because they're just low and they're always positive. Like, they'll be like, let's go, Arielle, you've got this. Whereas some coaches will be like, push harder, go faster. That me and my husband have learned like what motivation works for me and what doesn't. And any negative of like push harder, my brain reads it as you're not pushing hard enough, go faster. Or the negative of like run to the thing, when it's like, no, just say like you're doing great. Give me positive affirmation. So I always hear them, and they always know how to word it. So I receive it like nicely and encouraging.
There you go. If anyone is watching or listening that is going to the games this year, that's the kind of positive reinforcement you want to hear.
Please.
No, hurry up.
Because I learned real quick when me and my husband have been together for a long time. So the first time I ever did the open, he would say things like, you can breathe when you're done. Quit bending over. And I just had to really self-reflect and be like, why do I hate that cheering? Like, I'd rather him say nothing. And I was like, okay, I need positive. Like, you look strong, you look great. Like, anything to distract yourself.
No, that's good to know if we ever come across in person. So going in, we are like 8 weeks out from the games ish. What's the vibe? What are the goals this season for the games?
Yeah, number one is to go in healthy. So I'm gonna train hard, but I'm gonna also try and listen to my body and not like semifinals. I went in with a little elbow tweak. I'm hoping to go into the games feeling great and just so I can give it my all. The goal would be top 10. The dream would be to be higher than top 10.
Mm-hmm. Not just to get paid.
Yeah, this year I'd love to get paid, but it's not just to get paid.
It's so great. We are so looking forward to cheering you on. I'm not going to let you go just yet because I'm going to throw some quick fire questions at you first.
Let's do it.
So firstly, your favorite lift?
Probably snatch.
I like that.
I feel like I can hold my own on a snatch versus a clean.
Mm-hmm. And I think the snatch event at semifinals that we just had, I know you posted about it, kind of how that moment was such a big one for you. It was so great to watch and so much more interesting. Like,
wasn't it?
I loved it.
Yeah, the commentators nailed it on the head. They were like, the last 30 seconds of the lift and the run, like, kept you on your toes the whole time. But the first 5.5 minutes, you were just kind of like, whatever, I can look away. But the last 30 seconds were intense.
Yeah, it was great to watch. What about your favorite overall movement?
I always love a good handstand walk. Anything gymnastic-y.
Preferred shoes to work out in?
Tier.
Of course. A gym accessory you can't live without?
Ooh. I probably would say the machines, like an echo bike or a ski erg or a rower, because that's one thing that can always get my heart rate up if it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Your favorite benchmark workout?
Probably Diane.
That's a good one.
I like that one. Yeah.
And my final question for you, if you could build and be in a dream team at the games, who would you have alongside you?
Ooh, good question. I'd probably want me. Of course, Rich Froning would be awesome to be on the team. Maybe Matt Frazier and then Danny Spiegel. That would be our dream team.
That's a solid team.
Yeah. I don't think we could ever make it happen, but it's a dream.
You never know. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It has been so great. Cannot wait to watch you. Fittest Mom in the US again. Keep going.
Thank you. Thanks for having
to have. But yeah, best of luck and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Love chatting with you.